The scream comes before the sentence does. Simone Carter is reaching for a bundle of basil at the Saturday market when Amara's small hand shoots out from the stroller, finger locked, aimed dead across the aisle. Mama, Mama, him. Simone follows the finger. A man in a gray linen shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, laughing at something a vendor said. Ink crawls up from his wrist and disappears under the fold of fabric. More at his collar, climbing his neck like it's trying to get somewhere. Baby, that's not, we don't point at people. Amara doesn't blink, doesn't cry the way she cried the last 2 times. This time she just stares, small body gone rigid, breath shallow and fast. Bad, him. Man glances over, not startled, not offended. He looks at the toddler like he's been looked at like this before and knows exactly what to do with it, nothing. He smiles, small and even, and turns back to the vendor. Simone yanks the stroller back a step before she even decides to. Simone has learned this market's rhythm over the last 2 months the way she learns everything new, fast, deliberately, like mastering it is the only way to prove the move was worth it. She knows which stall has the good peaches, which vendor remembers Amara's name, which corner gets the morning light just right for the photos she posts to reassure everyone back home that the relocation was the right call. She has built, piece by piece, the appearance of a woman who has this fully handled. A woman beside her at the tomato stand notices. First time seeing him, he's harmless, owns half the good restaurants downtown. She's never done this before. Are weird about strangers sometimes. Except that's the thing. Amara isn't weird about strangers. Amara waves at strangers. Amara climbs into strangers' laps at the pediatrician's office if they let her. This isn't stranger anxiety. This is something else, and Simone doesn't have a name for it yet. That's when it lands, the thing she's been swallowing for 2 weeks. This isn't the first time. Queens, before we go one more step into this, I need you here for this one. If this is your first time in this room with me, welcome, because you walked in at the exact right moment. Tell me where you're watching from tonight, because I want to know who's sitting with me while this unfolds. Hit subscribe before this story moves another inch, because I don't want you finding this family halfway through what's coming. And drop me a comment right now. Has your own child ever reacted to someone in a way you couldn't explain? I want to read every single one of those before this goes further. 3 nights earlier, it was the daycare pickup. Amara had gone still in Simone's arms the second the man crossed the parking lot to his car. No scream that time, just her small hand curling into Simone's collar, gripping so tight her knuckles went pale. Squeezing, baby. Amara didn't loosen, didn't answer. Just watched him get in his car and drive off before her hand finally relaxed. Before that, at the restaurant preview Simone's firm was staffing, the one owned by Kang Min-ho, the man whose name is on every polished, glowing write-up in the city's business section. Amara had refused to walk through the door. Full stop. Planted her feet on the sidewalk and would not move, would not be carried, until Simone gave up and waited outside with her while a coworker finished the walkthrough alone. Simone had told herself, new city, new faces, kids get overwhelmed. She's run out of new city excuses. That night after Amara's finally down, Simone sits at the kitchen table with her laptop and a glass of wine she won't finish. She searches him. Kang Min-ho, restaurant group, charity gala photos, a profile in the business journal calling him the quiet transformation of the district's restaurant scene, nothing wrong on the surface. That's what catches her. Every photo, long sleeves, even in July. Every profile shot, angled so the left side of his neck stays out of frame. A man that photographed, that praised, doesn't accidentally avoid the camera like that. He's controlling something. She scrolls further. An old blurry photo from a decade back before the polish, grainier, unposed, taken outside a building she doesn't recognize. His sleeves are pushed up in that one. The ink is darker there, fresher. Younger version of the same careful man. Her phone buzzes. Text from Denise, the coworker who did the walkthrough alone. You good? You seemed rattled outside Minho's place. Simone types 3 different replies and deletes them all before settling on just a toddler thing. She's picky about new places. She hits send and knows immediately it's a lie she needed to tell herself first. The flashback arrives uninvited, the way they always do, not chosen, just surfacing. She's 7. Her father's voice, low, urgent, on the phone in the next room, door not quite shut. You don't understand what marked hands mean where he's from. I'm not doing that again. Pressed her ear to the gap and heard nothing else useful, just her father's breathing gone ragged, and then silence, and then he'd come out of that room a different weight than he went in. He'd knelt down in front of her in the hallway, forced a smile onto a face that clearly didn't want one, and said, "Everything's fine, Peanut." believed him. She was 7. Believing him was the whole job. 3 months later, he was gone. No note, no body. Just a mother who stopped saying his name in the house and a daughter who grew up assuming the silence was the whole story. Simone closes the laptop. Her hands aren't steady. She calls her mother the next morning, phone pressed hard to her ear, packing the kitchen while Amara eats cereal like the world isn't tilting. Mom, I need you to tell me something and I need you to not deflect this time. Simone, it's 7 in the morning. Dad ever mention a name? Minho or Choi, anything Korean, anything to do with a debt. Silence on the other end goes on a beat too long. Where is this coming from? Amara's been reacting to a man, a business owner here. I found a photo of him with Dad before he disappeared. Simone. Her mother's voice drops, careful, the way it always drops when the subject gets too close to the thing she buried along with her husband's absence. Whatever you found, leave it alone. That's not an answer, Mom. That's the same non-answer everyone gives me. Because there isn't a good one. A long breath crackles down the line. Your father was in trouble before he left. Money trouble and worse than money. I didn't ask questions because asking felt like it would make it more real. One day he just stopped coming home, and I told myself it was easier to let you believe he chose to leave than to tell you the truth, that I don't actually know if he had a choice at all. Simone sits down hard at the table. You've let me be angry at him for 12 years for something he might not have done. I let myself be angry at him too. It was easier than being afraid. Her mother's voice cracks just slightly. If there's a real answer out there now, baby, I want it. But I want you safe more. Whatever this is, don't do it alone. Simone doesn't promise that. She hangs up with more questions than she started with, and Amara looks up from her cereal like she already knows the call didn't go the way her mother needed it to. Amara's daycare teacher, Ms. Delacroix, catches Simone at pickup the next day, gentle but direct in the way good teachers learn to be. She's been drawing that same building for 3 days straight. I wanted to mention it before you heard it from someone else. I know, she showed me. She also told another child today that a man was sad in the water place. Very specific for a 3-year-old's imagination. Ms. Delacroix studies Simone's face carefully. Kids process the world in strange ways sometimes, but this feels less like imagination and more like she's working something out. Has anything changed at home recently? Any stress she might be picking up on? It's complicated. Usually is with kids this sharp. Ms. Delacroix hands over Amara's daily folder, papers slightly askew from 3 days of the same insistent drawing. I'm not worried about her, for what it's worth. She's remarkably steady for a child fixating on something upsetting. Whatever she's carrying, she seems to trust that you'll handle it. Kids that age don't extend that kind of trust easily. Simone thinks about that the whole drive home. Her daughter's strange, unshakable calm in the middle of something Simone herself can barely hold steady inside. Somewhere along the way, Amara decided her mother was safe enough to carry the truth to, and that trust suddenly feels like the heaviest thing in the car. Denise finds her at the office 2 days later, coffee in hand, voice dropped low even though the floor is half empty. Why are you asking around about Minho? I'm not asking around. You asked Priya if she knew anything about his old business partners. That's asking around. Simone sets her pen down. Is there something to know? Denise's jaw works like she's deciding how much of this is worth saying out loud in a building with this many windows. There's a version of this city where people don't ask that question twice. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got that keeps both of us employed. Denise leans in, quieter now. He funds half the redevelopment projects downtown. He's on 2 hospital boards. Whatever he used to be, nobody who matters here cares anymore. So be careful whose attention you pull. My daughter isn't attention I chose to pull. She just won't stop. Denise's face softens, just slightly. Then maybe that's the answer you should be listening to instead of the internet. She walks away before Simone can push further, and the not answer sits heavier than any answer would have. Her boss catches her in the hallway before any of that, brisk and distracted. The Minho account is our biggest client this quarter. You've seemed distracted since the walkthrough. Everything all right? Everything's fine. The lie comes easier now, practiced. Personal stuff. It won't touch the account. He nods, already moving on to the next fire, and she's left standing there thinking how absurd it is that a toddler's fear and a father's 12-year disappearance are expected to politely wait their turn behind quarterly deliverables. Simone tracks down Detective Ruiz that same afternoon, retired now. But he's the name on the original missing persons file from 12 years ago. the one she requested, and reread so many times as a teenager the pages went soft at the folds. He meets her at a diner, older than his file photo, tired in the way of a man who spent a career watching cases go cold and unresolved. "I remember your father's case," he says before she's even fully sat down. "Not many missing persons files stay open in my head for over a decade. Why'd it stay open in yours? Because it never should have been closed the way it was. No body, no trail, but the department wanted it filed as a voluntary disappearance. Debt, apparently. Man runs from debt, nobody looks too hard." Ruiz stirs his coffee, doesn't drink it. "I never believed that. Men who run from debt don't usually leave every photo of their daughter behind." Simone's throat tightens. "He left the photos, everyone. I cataloged the apartment myself." Ruiz studies her face like he's looking for her father in it. "There was another name that came up in the file, redacted before it went anywhere. I always figured somebody higher up made sure it stayed redacted." "Do you remember the name?" "I remember it started with a K." He watches her reaction carefully. "You already know who I'm talking about, don't you?" "I think I do." "Then be careful, Ms. Carter. Whatever kept that name out of an official file 12 years ago is still capable of keeping things quiet now." He finally drinks his coffee, like the warning cost him something to give. "Your father's case file is the only place where I still owe somebody the truth. I'd like to actually close it before I die." "Don't get yourself hurt trying to help me do that." That evening, Amara is different, not scared, focused. She's on the living room floor with a fat crayon, drawing something that isn't a house, isn't a dog, isn't any of the usual toddler shapes. A rectangle, a door off-center, water lines beneath it in wobbly blue. "What's that, baby?" Where the man was sad. Simone crouches down slow, careful not to spook whatever this is. "What man?" Amara taps the drawing, insistent, the way she taps when she wants a specific snack and won't be talked into a different one. "Man, before he was sad there." "Before when?" Amara just shrugs, the way kids shrug at questions too big for the answer they've got. "Before me." Simone doesn't know what before means to a 3-year-old, whether it's yesterday or some impression she can't have actually lived through. But the water lines under that door look like the docks 2 miles from their apartment. She's driven past that stretch a dozen times. She should call someone. She should let this go. Instead, she folds the drawing and puts it in her bag because some part of her already knows she's going to follow it. Before she does, she makes one more call, an old contact from her firm's PR days. A woman named Faye who used to run background checks for corporate clients before she went independent. Need everything you can find on a business owner. Legitimate on paper. I want to know what isn't. That's vague, Simone. It's the best I've got right now. Faye calls back 2 days later, voice careful in a way that tells Simone the answer isn't nothing. Kang Min-ho. Restaurant group checks out clean, genuinely clean, which is rare enough on its own to be interesting. But there's a gap. 8 years ago, before any of these restaurants existed, there's almost no digital footprint of him at all. No lease records, no employment history, nothing. Like he started existing the day he opened his first restaurant. People don't just start existing. They get erased and then rebuilt, usually with help, usually because someone needed them to disappear from one life before they could show up clean in another. Faye's voice drops. I found one thread that didn't get scrubbed all the way, a business registration filed under a slightly different name 8 years ago. Same tax ID eventually folded into his current company. The original filing lists a cosigner, redacted but the redaction's sloppy. I could make out 2 letters before the blackout. CA. Simone's chest goes tight. Carter. I didn't want to say it before you did. Faye lets that sit. Whoever helped him build his new life had the same last name as your missing father, Simone. That's either the wildest coincidence I've seen in 15 years of this job, or it isn't a coincidence at all. Isn't? Then be careful. Whoever scrubs a business filing that thoroughly usually has the resources to scrub people too, if they need to. Queens, I need you standing with me right here, because what happens next split me down the middle writing it. A mother is about to follow a 3-year-old's crayon drawing to a building she has no business walking into. Hit that like button right now if you're standing with Simone on this one, and drop a comment telling me straight. Does trusting your child's instinct over your own fear make her brave, or does it make her reckless? I want that comment section split in half before this story goes one more step, because it does not stay quiet from here. The building is exactly where the drawing said it would be. Boarded windows, a faded sign no one's bothered to take down, water lapping close enough at the seawall that the smell of it clings to everything. Simone almost turns back. Amara doesn't let her small hand tugging hers toward a side door that's been forced open at some point and never fixed. Amara, we should. Here. Amara pulls harder. Here, Mama. Inside, it's mostly empty. Dust, a stack of rotted crates, a single overturned chair. But on the wall, half-peeled, a photo taped up like someone put it there and never came back for it. Two young men. One of them unmistakably a younger version of her father, same jaw, same crooked front tooth. The other, arms crossed, ink dark and fresh on his forearms, unmistakably Minho. Simone's hand goes to her mouth. Her knees nearly buckle and she catches herself against the doorframe, Amara still on her hip, watching her mother's face with an eerie stillness. Told you, him. Before. Simone stands there a long moment, just breathing, letting the shock land instead of running from it. Amara doesn't fuss, doesn't ask to leave. She just waits, patient in a way no 3-year-old should have to be. She looks around the rest of the room while she still has the nerve to. A rusted filing cabinet, drawers hanging open, long since picked clean. A calendar on the wall, curled and water-stained, stopped on a month 12 years gone. Someone left this place in a hurry and never came back to finish whatever they started. Under the overturned chair, half buried in dust, she finds a second photo, smaller, creased down the middle like it had lived in someone's wallet. Her father again, younger, laughing at something outside the frame, one arm slung easily around a boy who couldn't have been older than 19 or 20. The same boy from the first photo. Whatever they were to each other once, it wasn't only business. There was something like friendship in the ease of that arm around a shoulder. She pockets both photos and finally lets Amara tug her back toward the door, back out into daylight that feels too bright and too ordinary for what she just found. That night, after Amara's asleep, Simone sits with both photos spread on the table and lets herself feel the thing she's been outrunning all day. Not fear exactly, something closer to grief arriving 12 years late, for a father she's spent over a decade being angry at instead of missing. She doesn't call Minho. She doesn't call anyone. She just sits with the photos until the ache dulls enough to function, and somewhere in that long, quiet hour, she stops thinking of him only as a threat to investigate and starts wondering, uneasily, what it must have cost a 19-year-old to be handed an order to hurt a man he apparently once called a friend. That thought scares her more than the tattoos ever did. Fear of a stranger is simple. Understanding him is not. She doesn't call ahead. She shows up at his restaurant an hour before opening, Amara on her hip, photo folded in her coat pocket like it might combust. Minho is at the host stand, going over a reservation list and looks up like he already expected this, not today exactly, but eventually. MS, Carter. Even, unbothered. You're early for a table. Not here for a table. She sets the photo on the stand between them. Doesn't say anything, lets it do the talking. His face doesn't crack the way she expected. It just goes still, the way a man goes still when a debt finally comes due. Where did you find this? My daughter found it, before I did. Simone's voice shakes and she hates that it shakes. That's my father, that's you. You want to tell me why she's been terrified of your face for 2 weeks, or should I just call it in and let the police figure out why? She's not terrified of my face. Minho's eyes flick to Amara, who's watching him with an unreadable steadiness that unsettles even him. She's terrified of what she can feel near me. Do that. Don't make this poetic. My father disappeared and you're standing here in a photo with him. I know. Then talk. He gestures to a booth. Sit. Not sitting. She cuts him off before he finishes. You get 5 minutes standing right here and then I decide if the police get the rest. Minho nods once, accepting the terms. Father owed people money he didn't have and information he shouldn't have known. I was supposed to collect both. So you did what? Hurt him. I helped him disappear before the people above me could do worse than collect. You expect me to believe that. Don't expect anything from you. I'm telling you what happened. His jaw tightens. It cost me 12 years of looking over my shoulder and every legitimate thing I've built since, because the men I answered to don't forgive being made to look weak. You never once thought to find out if he made it, if we made it. I told myself it was safer for both of us if I didn't. His eyes drop just briefly. Then a woman with his exact jaw and his exact stubbornness moved into the city, and I told myself it was coincidence. I don't believe that anymore. Simone's grip on Amara tightens. The tattoos, Mark rank. The kind you can't get removed, only outgrow. His eyes go to Amara again, careful now, almost gentle. Your daughter isn't reading me. She's reading what follows me. That's supposed to make this better. No, nothing makes this better. I'm not asking for better. Minho's composure slips for the first time, just at the edges. I've spent 12 years building something clean enough that nobody would ever have to know what I used to be. I told myself that was penance. Standing here, looking at your daughter's face, I understand now it was just hiding. Do the guilty man's speech. I didn't come here for your redemption arc. I know why you came. He meets her eyes, steady despite everything underneath it. You came because a 3-year-old has better instincts than every adult in this story, including me. I'm asking you to trust that instinct all the way, not just part way. She led you to the truth. Let her lead you to the rest of it, too. You don't get to tell me how to parent my daughter. You're right, I don't. He exhales, the closest thing to an apology he seems willing to give out loud. I'm telling you what I know because you asked for 5 minutes, and I intend to use every second of it honestly, even if honest doesn't earn me anything. Simone studies him a long moment, the stillness in his hands, the careful way he's kept distance from Amara this whole conversation, like he's aware his proximity alone is a kind of threat he doesn't want to be. It's not innocence. But it isn't performance either, and she's spent enough years reading rooms for a living to know the difference. Keep talking, she says. Your 5 minutes just became 10. Amara, quiet this whole exchange, suddenly points past Minho's shoulder toward the front window, toward the street. Him too. Simone turns. There's no one there, just a parked sedan, windows dark, engine still running. Who is that? Simone says low. Minho follows her gaze and his whole posture changes. The calm business owner ease dropping off him like something he can no longer afford to wear. Get away from the window. He doesn't let them leave through the front. He walks them out through the kitchen, past confused staff, into an alley that smells like grease and rain, and doesn't speak again until they're in his car with the doors locked. Talk. Now. Simone's voice is flat, controlled, the way people get controlled right before they stop being controlled at all. His name is Choi. He ran the collection side back when I worked under him. Minho checks the mirrors, hands steady on the wheel even as his voice isn't. When I disappeared your father instead of delivering him, Choi lost standing. Men like him don't forgive that. He spent a decade rebuilding what I cost him. So this is revenge. This is a ledger. Your father is an unpaid line on it. You and your daughter are the only entries left to collect against. Simone's stomach turns. You're telling me my daughter is a debt. I'm telling you that's how he sees it, not how I see it. He glances at Amara in the rear view, quiet in her car seat, watching the conversation with that same unnerving stillness. I won't let him collect. You don't get to promise me that. You're the reason this exists at all. I know. He doesn't argue it, doesn't soften it. I'm not asking you to forgive that tonight. I'm asking you to let me be useful instead of dangerous, because right now those are the only 2 things I can be to you. Simone doesn't answer right away. The silence stretches, heavy, neither of them filling it, until Amara's small voice breaks it from the back seat. Trust him, a little. Simone turns around, startled. Baby, you don't. A little, Amara says again, simply, like she's already done the math her mother is still doing. Simone doesn't sleep that night. She sits by Amara's door with the lights off, replaying 12 years of her mother's silence, her father's absence, a debt she never knew existed landing on a toddler who shouldn't have to carry any of it. By morning, she's made a decision she resents making, but she's made it with her eyes open this time, not out of fear. Need everything, she tells Minho, back at the restaurant, his private office this time, door shut. Not the polished version. All of it, or I walk and take my chances with the police and whatever Choi wants to do. Fair. He doesn't hesitate this time, doesn't wrap it in careful language. Choi's rebuilt most of his old network in the last 3 years. If he's confirmed where you live, he's already decided how this ends. The only variable left is whether I'm standing between you when it happens. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be, it's true. He meets her eyes. I'll protect her, both of you. Not because it clears anything, because I owe your father a debt I never got to pay, and she's the only piece of him left. Simone doesn't trust him, but she trusts her daughter, and her daughter has been right every single time. If I do this, she says, I need to know what it actually looks like, not vague promises, specifics. Specifics. Minho nods, like he expected exactly this. I have people who still owe me loyalty from before, quietly off the books. I'll have someone near your building at night, someone near the daycare during drop-off, without making it obvious enough to alarm anyone. I'll deal with Choi directly myself before he escalates past surveillance into something neither of us can walk back. If he doesn't stop at surveillance, then I stop him, whatever that requires. His jaw sets, flat and certain. I'm not asking you to trust my intentions blindly. I'm asking you to let me prove them, one decision at a time, starting now. That's not nothing. Simone exhales, long and slow, the fight finally draining out of her posture, replaced by something more tired and more resolved. But you should know the second this stops feeling like protection and starts feeling like control. Done with all of it. Police, consequences for you, whatever it costs. Understood. He doesn't argue the terms. That's a fair line. I'd expect nothing less from your father's daughter. 2 nights later, he shows up at her door, not the restaurant this time, with takeout containers and a look on his face like a man bracing to be turned away. Not here to convince you of anything else tonight. He holds up the bag like evidence. Amara's asleep, I assume. You haven't eaten a full meal in 3 days. I noticed at the restaurant, it's not subtle. You've been watching me eat. Been watching you not eat. There's a difference, and it worried me. He sets the bag down without waiting for permission, careful, like a man testing how much space he's allowed. You don't have to talk to me. I just didn't want you doing this alone tonight. She almost sends him away. Almost. But the apartment has felt too quiet since the docks, too full of her own unanswered questions, and some small, tired part of her is grateful not to be sitting with them by herself. They eat at the kitchen table, mostly in silence, until she finally asks the question she's been circling for days. Did you know him well, my father, before all of it? Minho sets his chopsticks down, considers the question longer than she expects. He taught me how to drive. My English wasn't good yet, and nobody else had the patience. He used to say I braked too hard, like I was always expecting the car to betray me. A small, unguarded laugh escapes him, gone as quickly as it came. He wasn't just a name on a ledger to me. I want you to understand that, even though I know it doesn't undo anything I did. It doesn't. Her voice isn't cruel, just honest. But it helps me understand why you're still standing here instead of somewhere safer for you. Safer stopped mattering the day your daughter pointed at me in a farmer's market. He meets her eyes, steady. I've spent 12 years building a life designed to never require courage again. Turns out that was never actually available to me. Not really. They don't talk about Choi that night, or the debt, or any of it. For one evening, they just let themselves be 2 people who both loved, in different and complicated ways, the same man who disappeared. It's the first time since this started that Simone doesn't feel entirely alone in carrying it. Choi has been in the city 3 weeks by the time the sedan starts appearing outside Simone's building. He didn't come for her at first. He came because word reached him that Kang Min-ho's name was showing up in searches it hadn't shown up in for years. And men who have spent a decade rebuilding a reputation pay attention. When someone starts digging near the grave, they buried it in. He finds Min-ho's restaurant easily enough. Sits at the bar one evening, orders quietly, watches the room the way a man watches a house he used to live in and still thinks he owns. He recognizes the woman before he ever learns her name. The jaw first, then the stubborn set of her shoulders when a waiter gets an order wrong, so precisely her father's that his glass stops halfway to his mouth. He doesn't approach that night. He watches Min-ho watch her instead, notices the careful distance the man keeps, the way his eyes track her like a debt finally coming due, and Choi understands immediately what he's looking at. 12 years of a ledger he never got to close, walking around in a woman who doesn't even know she's the entry still owed. He follows her home, learns her schedule, learns the daycare, the market, the route she walks with the girl on Saturdays. He is, above all things, a patient man. Patience is the only skill that survived every version of himself he's had to become. He doesn't need to rush this. He only needs her to understand, eventually, that some debts don't die with the man who owed them. They simply wait for someone else to be born into paying them. She feels it before she sees it, that specific unease of being watched that no amount of rational explanation fully talks you out of. Walking Amara back from the corner store, groceries in one arm, daughter's hand in the other, she catches the same dark sedan idling half a block down, engine running, windows tinted just enough to hide whoever's inside. She doesn't run. Running would tell them she's noticed. Instead, she keeps her pace even, talks to Amara about nothing, the color of a stranger's umbrella, whether they have enough milk, while every nerve in her body screams to move faster. Amara's grip tightens in hers, small fingers digging in. That car, Mama. I see it, baby. We're okay, keep walking. It's watching. I know. They make it inside. Simone locks the deadbolt, then the chain, then stands with her back against the door for a full minute before she lets herself breathe normally again. She texts Minho a single line, "He's outside my building," and gets a reply in under 30 seconds. "Don't go out again tonight. I'm coming." She doesn't know when trusting him became automatic instead of a decision she has to keep remaking, but somewhere in the last week it did, and that unsettles her almost as much as the car outside. It happens fast, the way these things always do once the waiting is over. The sedan is outside the apartment when Simone pulls in with Amara. A man steps out, unhurried, the kind of calm that's worse than shouting. Choi. Older than the photo, ink faded to gray-green, eyes doing a slow inventory of both of them like he's confirming a delivery. Simone Carter. Not a question. "You look like him." She doesn't answer. Pulls Amara tighter against her hip and angles her body between the man and the car door. "Your father made a choice that cost me. I only need one thing from you to close it out." Choi's hand goes to his coat. "A conversation, that's all. Nobody has to." "Get away from my daughter." "I haven't touched her." "You're standing near her. That's already too close." Choi's mouth curves, thin and unimpressed. "Brave for a woman who doesn't know what I am." "I know exactly what you are. My daughter told me before I even had a name for it." Minho's car is already turning into the lot, tires loud on wet pavement, before Choi finishes his next sentence. Choi's attention splits for half a second toward the incoming car, and in that half second Amara does something Simone will replay for the rest of her life. She wriggles free of Simone's grip, drops to the pavement, and runs not away but toward the stairwell door of the building, screaming loud enough that 2 neighbors' lights snap on above them. "Help! Help US, please." It's not panic. It's precise. She's seen enough of adult fear to know exactly what breaks a plan built on quiet. Choi lunges to grab her and Simone is already moving, faster than thought, putting her whole body between the man's hand and her daughter's collar. "You dare." Minho is out of the car before it fully stops, and whatever calm restaurant owner face he's worn for 12 years comes off like a coat he no longer needs. "Choi, this ends here or it ends badly. Your call. You don't get to decide that anymore. You forfeited that when you let him walk." "I forfeited the org, not this." Minho doesn't raise his voice. "You touch either of them, every favor I've spent 12 years building turns into every enemy you've made coming to collect on my behalf." Is that really the math you want tonight? You think I came here without a plan for that. I think you came here without knowing there'd be witnesses on every balcony filming you. Minho tilts his head slightly toward the lit windows above them. You built your whole comeback on nobody remembering your face. That's over the second any of this ends up online with a timestamp. Choi's composure cracks, just barely, a flicker of the calculation Minho was counting on. You'd burn your own name to protect a woman you've known 2 weeks. Burn my name to pay a debt I've owed for 12 years. She's just the proof it's finally due. Sentiment from you. Choi almost laughs, bitter and short. That's new. Everything about me is new. That's what you never accounted for when you started rebuilding. I'm not the man you collected favors from anymore. Minho takes one step closer, deliberate, unhurried. Walk away tonight, and this stays a private matter between men who understand each other. Stay another 30 seconds, and it becomes a public one, with your face on it, in a city that's spent a decade forgetting who you used to be. Your choice which version follows you home. Neighbors are on their porches now. A phone is out, recording. Choi's calculation visibly shifts. The quiet debt he came to collect just became a very public problem, and public was never his method. He looks at Simone one last time, at Amara clinging to her leg, breathing hard but not crying. This isn't finished. Is for you, Minho says. Walk away. Or I make a call that ends whatever's left of your standing tonight instead of eventually. Choi's eyes stay on Amara a beat too long, like he's recalculating something about her specifically, not just the situation. Then he turns, unhurried on the surface, and gets back in the car. He leaves. Not because he's beaten, because the cost just outweighed the debt. That's the only math men like him ever respect. Nobody moves for a long moment after the sedan turns the corner. The porch lights stay on. Somewhere a dog is barking at nothing in particular. Simone sinks down onto the curb, Amara still gripped against her, and just breathes. Minho stands a respectful distance away, not crowding the moment, not performing comfort he hasn't earned. Shaking, he says finally. So are you. He doesn't deny it. They sit with that shared, unglamorous fact for a while, 2 adults who just survived something, neither of them pretending it was easy. Neither of them rushing to fill the silence with reassurance that isn't true yet. Amara, tucked against her mother's chest, finally exhales too, small and slow, like she's only now allowed to be 3 years old again instead of whatever she had to be for the last 10 minutes. You did good, baby, Simone murmurs into her hair. You did so good. Helped. You did more than help. You saved us. Simone pulls back enough to look at her daughter's face, still finding it strange and humbling that this much clarity lives behind such a small forehead. How did you know this whole time? How did you know he was safe and the other man wasn't? Amara considers the question with the particular seriousness of a child being asked something she's never had to put into words before. Him, she points faintly toward where Minho still stands, giving them space. Sad but trying, the other man. She shakes her head, decisive. Not trying, just hungry. Simone doesn't fully understand the distinction, not in any language she could explain to another adult, but something about it settles the last of the fear in her chest anyway. Her daughter had never been reading danger. She'd been reading intention, the whole time, more clearly than any adult in this story managed to. Minho finally steps closer, crouching slightly to Amara's eye level, voice gentler than Simone's heard it yet. Thank you, he says simply, for trusting me before your mother could. Amara studies him a moment, then nods, like she's confirming something she already decided weeks ago and is only now getting around to announcing officially. You're okay, she says. Now, it's not forgiveness, not from a 3-year-old who has no real concept of what there is to forgive. But it lands like something adjacent to it anyway, and none of them correct her. Weeks later, Simone still doesn't fully trust Minho. Trust isn't the word for what's grown between them. It's closer to an uneasy truce built on a debt that runs both directions now. Amara doesn't point at him anymore. She just watches him sometimes, the way she watches whether she's already decided has passed. Denise corners her by the coffee machine on a Tuesday, curiosity finally winning out over caution. You're different since whatever happened with Minho. Good different. What changed? I stopped assuming quiet meant safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got that doesn't take an hour. Simone almost smiles, the first real one Denise has seen from her in weeks. I'll tell you the whole thing eventually, just not standing here. Eventually meaning never. Eventually meaning when I've figured out how to say it without sounding insane. Denise studies her for a second, then lets it go, the way good friends learn to let things go until the other person's ready. Whatever it was, you look like you got some kind of answer you'd stopped expecting. I did. Simone stirs her coffee, thinking of a photo taped to a wall in a building that doesn't exist anymore, torn down 2 weeks ago to make way for something new. 12 years of one, actually. Denise is about to say something else when her phone buzzes, a building alert app half the block subscribes to. She glances at it, frowns. Weird. Someone reported a dark sedan circling your block twice last night, probably nothing. She pockets the phone. This city's full of nothing lately. Simone's smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. Probably. She doesn't mention it to Minho. Not yet. Some part of her has learned, this past month, that not every shadow needs to be chased down immediately. Some can simply be watched quietly until they prove themselves either harmless or not. She's gotten better at telling the difference. She isn't naive enough to think she's gotten perfect at it. Detective Ruiz calls her a week after that, voice lighter than she's ever heard it. Closed your father's file today. Officially. Wanted you to be the first to know. What does it say? The official version. That he was coerced into disappearing to protect himself and his family from organized threat, and that he is presumed to have not survived the years following, based on new testimony. Ruiz pauses. I know that's not the ending you wanted. It's the ending that's true. That matters more than I thought it would. What it's worth, your daughter's the reason this file finally closes clean instead of staying open and wrong forever. A small, tired laugh. Never thought a 3-year-old would solve a case I couldn't crack in 12 years. Sees what's actually there, more than most adults I know. Care of her, Ms. Carter, and take care of yourself. You earned this quiet. At the kitchen table, Simone finally says her father's name out loud for the first time in years, and Amara looks up from her crayons like she's heard something she recognizes, even though she never met him, even though there's no way she should. Is he coming back? Simone doesn't have an answer that's true and gentle at the same time, so she gives her the true one. No, baby. But we found out what happened to him, and that matters too. Amara nods, satisfied in the specific, uncomplicated way toddlers are satisfied by answers adults spend years working toward. Then she goes back to her drawing, a house this time, ordinary, 4 walls and a door that isn't hiding anything behind it. Simone watches her daughter's small hand move across the page, steady and sure, and thinks about how the whole truth of the last month came down, in the end, to someone small enough to still trust her own eyes refusing to look away. Min-ho comes by that Sunday, the way he started to without it being a whole occasion. Not a date exactly, neither of them ready to call it that yet. Just a standing, unspoken understanding that his presence in this apartment has stopped being something Simone has to brace for. He brings a small toy car for Amara, who takes it without ceremony and immediately puts it through several dramatic crashes on the living room floor, narrating each one with great seriousness. She's going to grow up unafraid of everything, Min-ho says, watching her. That's either going to be the best thing about her or terrify every parent she ever becomes. Probably both. Simone leans against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching him watch her daughter with an expression she still doesn't have a clean name for. You know this doesn't erase anything. What you did, what it cost my family. I know. He doesn't flinch from it. I'm not asking to be forgiven for it. I'm asking to be allowed to keep showing up anyway, and to let that mean whatever it ends up meaning, instead of deciding in advance that it can't mean anything. Simone considers that a long moment, then looks at her daughter, steady, unafraid, narrating small, triumphant car crash noises into the quiet of a Sunday afternoon that finally feels like it belongs to them. Keep showing up, she says. We'll figure out the rest as we go. It isn't forgiveness. It isn't quite trust either, not fully, not yet. But it's a door left open instead of locked, and after everything, that feels like the truest kind of ending this story was ever going to earn. Outside, the evening settles over the city the way it does most Sundays now. Unremarkable, ordinary, the kind of quiet Simone stopped believing she'd ever get back. Amara's toy car crashes one more time against the leg of the coffee table, followed by a small, satisfied giggle that fills the whole apartment. Some truths cost everything to uncover. This one, at least, left them something worth keeping on the other side of it. Queens, sit with me here for a second, because I'm still sitting with it myself. A 3-year-old just broke a standoff that 2 grown adults couldn't talk their way out of, simply by trusting exactly what she felt and screaming loud enough for someone to listen. Comment below and tell me, should Simone let Min-ho stay in their lives after everything his past has cost her? Or is some debt too old to ever really be repaid? I want this comment section open for days on this one. If this story held you the way it held me, hit subscribe right now, because there's more of this family's story I'm not finished telling. And if you know a woman who's ever had to trust her gut over everyone telling her she's overreacting, share this with her tonight. She'll know exactly why it's for her.